Coming up on today's show, Sony bought Bungie, EA is talking NFTs, and special guest Michelle Morrow is here. What's good, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the What's Good Games podcast, your source for video game news, commentary, analysis, and funny stuff every Friday. I'm Andrea Renee, joined, as always, by Brittany Brombacher.
Hello, Andrea Renee.
Hello. How's it going, Britt?
Going lovely seeing your fine face, which I missed so much last week. But Brian was fantastic.
He was. You guys chatted Pokemon. And we are also joined by special guest, actress, and content creator Michelle Morrow.
Hey, what's up?
Hey,
it's
how's
so
it
good
going?
to see you.
I
And
know.
forever.
I was telling Brittany how fortunate I felt to run into you at the Arcane premiere, where I also ran into Jackie Jing, who was on the show just a couple weeks ago. And I was like, I can't believe we haven't had Michelle on the show yet. We got to get Michelle on the show. So I'm so glad that you are here, and we're going to have so much to talk about. You got
There's a lot of news
caught
this
a
week.
good week. Yeah.
Jeez, gaming
We're not
news.
going to be twiddling our thumbs, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's for sure. And for everyone who maybe is like, oh my gosh, that girl, Michelle, she looks familiar. Maybe you saw Michelle hosting BlizzCon. Maybe you saw her doing some cool YouTube projects like Good Game, or, you know, a whole host of other really cool media things or projects. You know, it's interesting when you talk about your career, it's so vast, all the different hats that you've worn. It's almost like when you
My
come up.
guy's here
Yeah, it's
to
like,
ruin this
oh,
moment,
no,
to be
let's-
complimenting me,
no,
and I
cats
just, you know,
are great.
that's how it goes. For
Come on,
me.
Kitty.
Let's
I
just-
see the fluff ball on the corner of your screen.
Do it.
She's
Do
there.
it.
Bring her over.
Oh, come on, Sam. This is Samus.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
She is so cute. Sam
Oh,
is.
look at her.
So happy.
so fluffy.
I know, she looks so thrilled to be there. It's
Look,
pretty remarkable.
your mom was getting complimented. This is how you treat me.
We love a good cat cameo, but we'll talk about everything that you've been working on and have worked on a little bit later on in the show. I want to give a big thank you to our Patreon producers, Chewy's Godson, Alex Rogopoulos, David Icolucci, Faris Atia, Justin Foshi, Matthew Godair, and Punctified. And welcome to our Patreon community, Fargo Brady and Rach Young. Brittany, it
I think
looks
that
like
was Rachel.
Oh, Rachel?
Sorry.
Maybe people
forgot
call her
an L.
Rach. Who knows?
You are, Rachel Young, you are now henceforth known as just Rach.
We are on a nickname basis, apparently. So welcome to the community. And Brittany, it looks like we have a couple new podcast reviewers.
We do. We have Lil Wormy and Evie14 exclamation point. Thank you so much for these kind reviews. We say it every week, but we cannot say it enough. They really mean a lot to us personally and professionally, but they also really, really help us in those podcast charts, which, you know, in turn gets more people to listen to What's Good Games. And friends, and if I could ask you for one little small favor, if you wouldn't mind helping us out just a little bit more, if you could take a few minutes and fill out a brief survey that is being hosted by our friends at Rooster Teeth. It is in the show notes, and it's just pretty much gauging your temperature. How often do you listen to our show? Where do you listen to our show? Do you listen to the whole thing, et cetera, et cetera? It shouldn't take more than a few minutes, and it will just really help us get some audience insight and help remind Rooster Teeth that they need to keep us around forever and ever. You know what I'm saying, Andrea?
We're the best.
Yeah, duh.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
They need more WGG in their life.
True.
All right. This show is also brought to you by MeUndies and Fixture Gaming, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. I want to dive right into this whopper of a news story. You know, it feels like the hits just keep coming when it comes to acquisition news in video games. What a mammoth January it was.
Yeah.
In video game acquisitions. Lots of money changing hands, and the latest is that Sony has bought Bungie for $3.6 billion. I tweeted that I did not see this coming, knowing that Bungie had quite a long road to becoming an independent studio, but hey, you know, this one is an interesting one. So over on gamesindustry.biz, they wrote that after the deal closes, Bungie will be an independent subsidiary of Sony Interactive Entertainment, run by a board of directors consisting of the current CEO and chairman, Pete Parsons, and the rest of the studio's current management team. Sony has said that Bungie will remain a multi-platform studio with the option to self-publish and reach players wherever they choose to play. At present, the studio is working on maintaining Destiny 2, of course, which Queen's coming in just 3 weeks, expanding the Destiny franchise, and working on new IP, which we know has been in the works for quite some time. So there's some quotes in this story from Jim Ryan, of course, talking about Bungie and PlayStation DNA and their partnership throughout Destiny. And then they're talking about where their IP will go, yada, yada, yada. The thing that I wanted to kind of skip to, which I thought was really interesting, is the idea that it wasn't that long ago, even though I guess technically it was like 20 years ago. Was it 20 years ago that Microsoft acquired Bungie back in 2000? And then they left Microsoft, and then they signed up with Activision in a 10-year deal, and then they left Activision, and then we thought, oh, Bungie's going to be out on their own. Nope, now they're with PlayStation. And they are apparently going to work with PlayStation Studios to launch more than 10 live service games by fiscal 2026. That secondary, hidden headline within that story is kind of
Where
what
does it
blew
say
my
that?
mind.
Where is it on here?
So
That's insane.
So it's at the bottom of the notes here. So it's a separate story where I said LOL what? That's the link to the full story.
Yeah, you did.
I just
Wow.
I couldn't believe that wasn't really kind of the focus of this acquisition.
Yeah.
So that to me is probably the reason why PlayStation made such a big show of being like, Bungie's going to remain independent, because it sounds like they're going to leverage their amazing live service and multiplayer technology that they developed for Destiny, which I beat a drum about how good their multiplayer is and how good their live service team is. Best in class in the business, I think. And PlayStation doesn't really have that for any of their first-party teams.
Exactly.
So that's clearly why they made this deal and allowed Bungie to retain their independence. What I love about this Eurogamer story that talks more about this 10 live service games deal is they kind of hypothesize about like, what could these 10 games be coming by March 2026, which is not that far away. It's 4 years away. 10 live service games. So they hypothesized the unnamed Bungie IP, which is codenamed Matter. So is that going to be PlayStation exclusive, or will it be multi-platform? TBD. Naughty Dog has been rumored to be working on a multiplayer only thing. That could be one of the live service things, right? Twisted Metal is reportedly in development.
Yes.
Right. So, and then Guerrilla has some online stuff going on because they've been hiring for online development roles. And then they also theorize that
there's also Sucker Punch,
right?
Insomniac.
Yeah. So those two teams really haven't done live service at all, right? But I think Sucker Punch opened the door with Ghost of Tsushima Legends and what they started with that for multiplayer. And if based off how well that was received, I think Sucker Punch has a really good base to potentially do a live service multiplayer iteration of that if they wanted to. And then, you know, the team over at Eurogamer also hypothesized that Deviation Games, the brand new studio that's currently working on a new IP for PlayStation that is made up of former Call of Duty Black Ops devs, obviously could be live service based. And then, you know, they're like, what about Jade Raymond's studio? What's she doing? To me, like Jade's studio doesn't really smack of being a live service. She feels more of like a tentpole narrative single player kind of studio, just based off her pedigree and where she comes from as a game maker. But you never know. So it's interesting to me. Michelle, what do you think about this Bungie news?
I mean, it was surprising, that's for sure. I don't think anybody saw it coming, right? I mean, the first thing I thought was like, you know, it gives them a big MMO for like the the metaverse. You know, I think a lot of people are trying to have a metaverse game like that, at least like futuristically thinking about it. You know, Xbox now has also World of Warcraft. Or Microsoft. So I would imagine, and Nintendo already has those kinds of worlds that you can kind of get into between like Pokemon and everything else. So I kind of saw this as like a metaverse play, that all of this consolidation that's kind of going on is like a play for the metaverse. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it is interesting. I mean, I don't know how they're going to turn out 10 games, but maybe it's just that they're working with different studios, I suppose.
Mm. Yeah, it's really interesting because I think a lot of folks were like, okay, so when you think of like the Activision Blizzard deal, right? You think, well, clearly we know what Microsoft is getting out of this, like Activision Blizzard, like what do they have in their little
Everything.
pocketbook there? Yeah, right, everything. But then when you see a Sony acquisition, which I mean, a big one like this, I feel like it's been a while, right? It's like, okay, cool. Like, what are they getting? And then it comes out that Bungie is going to continue to independently publish. It's like, well, what was the point of that? But like Andrea said, you get that immense treasure trove of knowledge that they have, and now Bungie is just an in-house like consultant in a way of speaking. And so if they do have these games coming out, who better than to make these games for you or tell you what works and what doesn't? Like, I think they are the best at what they do in terms of like online
Mhm.
multiplayer and nailing out a live service game, because they've had years and years to try to perfect that craft, and I think they almost have. The other thing too, though, is that they get the Destiny IP, and we know Sony loves to turn Sony IPs into television and movies, and we're getting the Uncharted film here pretty soon. We have Twisted Metal show in the works, The Last of Us with HBO, like it's all over. And I think Destiny, and Andrea can speak to this better than me because she's balls deep into the whole lore of it all. But I feel like
Yes.
that is just prime content for that kind of adaptation.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
I think that's like right there, like cha-ching, cha-ching, right? And then going forward, if Destiny is going to continue to be on these other platforms, of course, like that money is also going to end up in Sony's pocket as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, if it's a good, I think it's a great move actually. We've talked about, now Sony didn't have like a FPS staple in their book or whatever, but now they do. And not only that, it's just it just makes sense, I think, for what they need in their portfolio. So cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I hope it
Absolutely.
works for Bungie too. Like I feel like I don't know, their identity has been so strange because it's mixed with so many different people along the way. So it'll be interesting to see how much, I don't know, autonomy that they get, or how exactly. It'll be interesting to see how they grow for sure, because they've got a great team over there.
But based off everything that I've heard from teams that work underneath PlayStation Studios, people at Insomniac, people at Naughty Dog, etc., like they all have nothing but positive things to say about their working relationship with PlayStation as a boss. And clearly the
That's
games that are
good.
coming out of these studios are excellent, right? Like I feel like Sony hasn't really had like a swing and a miss in a while. Sure,
Mhm.
some are better than others, but there aren't really any bad games coming out of PlayStation Studios. And I
Mhm.
think that Bungie's only going to benefit from the influx of cash. I mean, look what Activision did for them with Destiny. Like, I don't think
Absolutely.
Bungie would
Yeah.
have ever been able to launch Destiny without the bankroll of Activision. And it's an amazing universe that they built, and I think it's really interesting that you brought up the idea of the metaverse and how PlayStation really didn't have something like that in their stable, and now Destiny's absolutely a metaverse ready
So I
game.
think, right? Like
Yeah.
that'll be interesting too, just to see how, like, I mean, like if you think about FPS in like the metaverse and people are doing that, like it's just such a crazy other thing. But and like how that would translate for so many of these games. But clearly that's got to be where the bet is, right? Like if there's already this online audience that's used to being online, that's used to digital goods, that's used to like online currencies, that's used to this world, then I mean, I think sure, like I think too that's probably why Take Two took Zynga. Like Zynga was king on Facebook, and this is just an extrapolation of that. So I don't know. I think these are probably all metaverse plays, but and all we can hope for would be cool is if we just end up getting some really great games out of it. It would be awesome if they could adapt that. I
Yeah,
mean, Destiny is definitely, you could do a lot with that, moving
absolutely.
into other mediums or other categories.
And I do
Mhm.
also want to mention that Jim Ryan did an interview with GamesIndustry.biz and said, expect more in terms to come of PlayStation acquisitions. So, of course, the internet is aflame with theories about who is PlayStation going to buy next. And it seems like the
Ooh.
popular developer is Capcom, that they're like, why wouldn't PlayStation buy Capcom? And I was like, I don't know. They've done a lot of deals with Xbox in the not too distant past.
That would
And
be interesting.
to me, the developer that would make more sense for them to buy would be Square Enix. Like,
Yeah.
That I think would be the biggest, like,
Who's
oh
getting
my
Final
god,
Fantasy?
biggest
Yeah,
power
it's
move to
yeah,
get. Yeah, I mean, yeah, when you think of Final Fantasy, you think of Dragon Quest, you think of all the other freaking games they've done going back to the PS1, right? You think of those JRPGs on a PlayStation platform. And even though they are available on Xbox now, you just think of it. It's synonymous with PlayStation.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that. That would just be like humongous. The popular vote I've been seeing is obviously Konami. For like obvious reasons.
No, who cares? Like, whatever, Metal Gear fans. Like, Konami's done. Konami like cashed in their game developer chips. All they want to do is like make slot machines in Japan. They're like, we don't care about making games anymore. The gaming community is too toxic. We're just gonna like put all of our money into gambling.
That would be, oh my god,
something safer than gaming.
Something safer than word to that. I mean, Capcom would be so interesting though, because when you do think of Resident Evil, you do think of the little exclusives that PlayStation got, especially when you think about Village, right? They got the time demo, for example, and other stuff like that. So, that would, oh man, I wonder how much more difficult it is to acquire a Japanese studio. I imagine there's a lot more hurdles that one has to clear to do that. But anyway,
maybe.
Fascinating shit. And like you said, like there's a lot more acquisitions. I almost said acquisitions, whatever I said from the Activision.
I wonder if Nintendo would be in on the Square Enix thing, like instead of just PlayStation on it. Like it seems like Nintendo could do something there, being like the Kingdom Hearts stuff. I never got into that. I think it's so silly, but this is way different than my generation. So this is like never my demo. But I mean, why? I don't know if maybe Nintendo, they've just got so much already going for them. I think like they don't necessarily need anything.
That's not their MO, right? Like they've never been like in the acquisition game like that. I mean, they have obviously bought some studios in the past, but I don't see them feeling the need to compete. They have the #1 selling console, and they have had it for the last couple of years. They have
Mario.
They're doing just fine on their own. They're not
going to go sexy either, with Final Fantasy, which is what Final Fantasy fans, they need that it needs to be sexy.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah, sexy Mario. And one of those like, what are those banana hammocks? Let's go. Can you imagine?
No.
That is an image I never wanted in my head. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on what's going on with the money that Jim Ryan is apparently going to start throwing around soon.
Oh my god.
Serious. Maybe I should revamp that game.
Listen, you can acquire What's Good Games for a cool $1 million. That's a drop in the bucket.
I would take Sony money. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's talk, Jim. Have your people call our people. It'll be great.
Official Sony podcast. What's Good
our
game?
People.
I'm a supporter of that. I think that'd be great.
Thanks, Michelle.
No problem.
Well, speaking of throwing money around, there was an investor call for Electronic Arts, and on that call, CEO Andrew Wilson was pretty non-committal about NFTs. So NFTs have obviously been all over the place in terms of news lately. And by all over the place, I mean a lot of people are backtracking about their involvement with NFTs. They'll announce an NFT project and then quickly retract their NFT project. Team 17 is the latest to say, hey, we were going to do this NFT project with Worms. JK, we're not doing it anymore. We're reconsidering. So on this investor call, CEO Andrew Wilson, according to Polygon, commented on NFTs and their place in gaming. Wilson said that he was ambivalent towards NFTs, which I don't believe for a second. Ambivalent, my ass. You have thoughts, Andrew, and we would like to know what they are. Saying that Electronic Arts would continue to evaluate them over time, but that the company was not focused on them as a priority. NFTs have been a controversial new element of some gaming economies, and big publishers have started to implement the technology in their games. An NFT, for those not in the know, a non-fungible token, is a unique token on the Ethereum blockchain. Stay with me, everybody. This token is meant to correspond to the supposed ownership of a digital item. So far, NFTs have been implemented in games like Ubisoft's Ghost Recon Breakpoint and a slew of others, but that's probably the most notable one. On the earnings call, Wilson talked about the idea of collectability in relationship to NFTs. Quote, the way I look at this is collectability is really built on 4 key metrics. It's around high quality content. It's around scarcity. It's around proof of authenticity. And it's around a group of people that find value in that content. And that last one, ladies and gentlemen, is really the kicker. So I brought this story up because we talked about NFTs in the metaverse in a Twitter space that I held last week, because the reason Brittany was doing the show with Brian and I wasn't there is because I was hosting for GamesBeat into the metaverse too. And
Right.
I think that this is really fascinating, looking at where gaming companies are going and how a lot of them are kind of quietly just not talking about what they're doing. But let me tell you, they're not stopping their NFT plans, you guys.
No.
All right?
Oh no.
Just because
course
the
not.
internet's mad about them right now doesn't mean that it's going away.
No, I mean, like, I think we were talking about it's inevitable. Like, it's gonna become a thing. Now, I think where it can get real egregious is where it's like, okay, we're gonna, and I think this is what everyone's fearful of, right? Is NFTs being implemented into a video game in a very nefarious way, and because. I mean, NFTs can be incredibly expensive. I'm just honestly fascinated by them. And so I've taken a lot of time to learn about NFTs. And I think, yeah, where it can get real gross is where you're like, okay, cool, you want this skin. Okay, put it on this website. And now it becomes like a bidding war. People list it for just outlandish prices that no one can afford. And that's kind of like how an NFT is purchased, right? You either bid on something or someone puts out a price outright and then you can purchase it. And if you're locking content like that behind, if you're giving the in-game economy the ability to list whatever it is that they're listing for an outlandish price, then like there's a lot of issues there. And that's the whole appeal of NFTs, is that it's decentralized, that there's not someone monitoring it. And that's why there's so many scams right now and so many what people call rugs. And it's a fascinating new territory. And I think where it gets complicated is how do you implement that into video games? And I know some people have these grand visions of it's going to be this thing where you buy a skin in one game and then it automatically translates into another game. And then that's the cool skin that you can take with you everywhere you go. And I mean, I can see that working in a world where the games are like built under the same developer or publisher. I think of a Ubisoft game. Like they've kind of like backed away from it, but like it's gonna happen. You buy a skin in Siege and then maybe it comes to the Division and maybe it comes to an Assassin's Creed game, like whatever that is, because they have a dedicated team working on that. Where it can also get real complicated though is like if you start touting this like idea of you buy a skin for your car in Forza and now you can carry it with you to Mario Kart. It's like, nah, dog. Like that's incredibly complicated and that's not how it works. And so I'm just so fascinated to see how this comes to games, because it's coming to games. Like regardless, it just is. Like this is an incredible money-making opportunity, like it or not, for people involved in the space. And so I just can't wait to see like how it stumbles or how it's successful or like how it all comes to play. Sit
Yeah.
back, grab your popcorn, friends.
I love that you've been going down this rabbit hole, because I have too. I mean, the event that I hosted last week, to be clear, was about the metaverse, and NFTs are just part of that conversation, but it wasn't specifically about NFTs. And like, I want to call out this story in particular and why I think Andrew Wilson and EA are like, we're not committed to NFTs. And I think it has a lot more to do with the potential trouble they could get into with regulatory government
Correct.
groups.
Yeah.
Because it was not that long ago that they got into a whole bunch of trouble about microtransactions and gambling.
That's correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That whole conversation is really still fresh in a lot of legislators' minds, even though gamers, I feel like, have maybe moved on, or some gamers have moved on, because it feels like 2015 does feel kind of like a lifetime ago. But the whole reason why EA was able, and EA is not the only publisher, by the way. Other companies who engaged in microtransactions as well were able to kind of skirt any kind of actual legal punishment around gambling and loot boxes and microtransactions, was because they were able to prove or convince the people in charge that the digital goods that you were getting from microtransactions are limited to the game that you're using them in. So if I'm playing FIFA and I buy, these foot packs, and I get these like special characters or these special skins to use in game, I can't then take those things outside of FIFA and sell them on an open marketplace and get like real world money for them. They're only worth whatever worth I deem them as in game, because I can't remove them from the gameplay of experience of FIFA. Now you bring NFTs into the conversation, and that completely like negates that whole argument that those microtransactions are not gambling, because they are digital goods that are tied to that particular ecosystem. So it's like, of course, they have to come out and be like, oh, no, NFTs are not a thing. We're not looking at that. But it's like, well.
Oh, you are. Absolutely.
Oh.
Absolutely.
What do you think,
Yeah,
Michelle?
I have so many opinions on this. Well, okay. Okay. First of all, like, I don't know if it will succeed. I don't know about that. I think that it's going to try. I also think that we've seen this already with the Diablo 3 auction house. We saw how that played out, and that was not good.
No.
Like Diablo is one of my favorite franchises of all time, and that ruined the game. Like, that tanked the game. That very specific thing of players, when you Jason, what's his name? Jason from Bloomberg that used to be at Kotaku.
Schreier.
Jason wrote a really great newsletter about NFTs and gaming, and it really resonated with me about my feelings with it. But what he said was, and his newsletter is great, by the way. If you're not subbed to it, it's awesome. But what he said was, this is horse armor. These are microtransactions. And as somebody who's been really involved in the Activision universe for so long, like, they kind of already do this concept with NFT, with a in-game item, right? Like, if you go to BlizzCon and you get a BlizzCon pack, you're going to get a digital good in every single one of the franchises. It'll be like, Tracer is going to show up in Heroes of the Storm or something, right? But you can't, like, if say I were to buy a gun in CS:GO, how am I going to take that to Hearthstone? Like, it doesn't make any sense to be able to travel through these different genres with these NFTs, unless it's like, so you buy this special skin of a gun, I guess you can only then use those in FPS, and then you can only use those on frameworks that use the same development tools. And then each one of those developers have to specifically design that gun. Like, if you're in World of Warcraft and you get Sword of 1,000 Truths and you're like, I have this fucking Sword of 1,000. Oh my gosh, can you swear on your podcast?
Of course you can.
Okay, so you're like, oh my god, I got this fucking Sword of 100 Truths, like 1,000 Truths. It's like my sword, and I'm gonna take it to CS:GO. Like, you can't take it to CS:GO.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it doesn't exist in that world. And so then you got to ask, like, exactly how does that work? Like, are you talking then about just like skins? Okay, so then, like, a skin company would essentially have to, like, license out to a bunch of different games and then create that, like, in-game outfit that your character wears, but you don't even know if a game that you play has a character that even wears an outfit. So how does that translate into that game? Or maybe you don't get it because you don't have a first person, avatar in that game. Like, I kind of see how it works for something like the metaverse, where you have, like, if this is going to happen, God fucking help us. But if you are like, you have it and you're like, I'm going to hang this awesome digital art. Look at my cool Bored Ape. It's so awesome. And you hang it, look how beautiful it would look right there instead of that. Like, it would be beautiful. Like, if this was your, like, room and you got to, like, decorate it and, like, make it dope, like, yeah, okay, I guess I can kind of see how, like, digital artwork could work if it were actually a system that could be trusted, where artists aren't getting fucked over. But right now they're getting, like, massively fucked over. There's just an article that came out, 80% of NFTs coming out on OpenSea that use their free tool are fraud. And just today,
wait, did you say 80%?
I did say 80%.
Like 80.
80%.
Wow.
It's a lot. And then also, Brittany, what you were talking about with, like, how crazy, like, expensive they get, right? Like, because you're like, how is this ape selling for, like, someone, like, drew that in 10 seconds. Like, what is happening? So what's happening is, because crypto's all this anonymous thing, is somebody makes this NFT and they're like, I'm going to sell, like, say it's me. I'm like, I'm going to sell this ape, and I put it online. Well, then I can then go and buy it myself and be like, I'm going to pay $30,000 or whatever that is in crypto. I'm going to pay, 10 crypto, Bitcoin, 10 ETH, whatever you pay for this thing. And then I can be like, oh my God, look how much it sold for. That's unbelievable. And then nobody knows, though, that I I'm the one who inflated the price. And so now it sells because like it's becoming this like art collector thing, but it's people inflating the price along the way themselves. It's a scam. It's a pyramid scam. And the people making the most money are really rich people. It's, you know, a lot of people will argue it's about like generational wealth and like, I think it's an asset class. And if you have money and you want to play in it, like go for it. It's terrible for the environment. And I think what Jason said in his newsletter that will really resonate with gamers is he's like, you know, the moment you take out the meaning of a game, which is like entertainment and to have fun, and you make it about making money, it's a gambling game now, you know. And you see what even happened with Valve, which with the whole like CS, right?
Yeah, the
and
skins?
the Washington State Gambling Commission came after them and was like,
Yep.
no, you know, and they got in a bunch of trouble for that. Like, I don't know. I'm get off my soapbox, but I'm just saying, I think it's just I think you're right that it is going to happen. I just don't know exactly how it's going to happen. It's not going to happen how people think it's going to happen right now. Like a lot of people who like give me the NFT talk are people who are not gamers. And it's a great idea. It would be lovely to have, you know, my celestial steed in every game that I write in World of Warcraft. Or if Mark Zuckerberg can figure out how I can fly on that thing, we're good. Then I will be able to justify spending $20 on that. I can't understand how people spend like $55,000 on one of these ape portraits when I feel bad about spending $20 on a, you know, New Year mount.
No, I'm glad that you got on your soapbox about it, because this is why people are upset and heated about it, right? Like, you know, there's a lot of concerns about them, and you just, you know, touched on just a couple of them, and it goes really deep. And what I thought was interesting about the chat that I had with Dean Takahashi and Jeff Grubb, Mike Minotti, and Rachel Kaiser from the GameSuite team, along with Khalif, who was co-hosting the GameSuite event with me, was, you know, Dean and Jeff kind of talked about the two different sides of NFTs and the metaverse, and why it can be good and why it can be, more importantly, why it can be very, very bad. You know, because I think Dean kind of came at it from this idea of, hey, like the whole idea of NFTs and creating a metaverse stemmed originally from this kind of like grassroots internet hacker culture of let's make a safe space for people away from big tech who does nothing but steal your data and then sell you like a commodity on the open market to the highest bidder. And you're nothing but the value of your data to these people, and you have no privacy, and they, you know, are not to be trusted. Let's make a safe space in the metaverse. And let's create this thing called blockchain where it's decentralized and you don't have to play by their rules anymore, and it's going to be great. Until big tech was like, oh, is there money to be made here? Do you guys think that you can make Web3 without us? And I think that's where, you know, Jeff's argument really came in, and he was like, you know, like the idea of Web3 was solid. Like, but in practice, like you can't escape the Sauron gaze of Facebook. You know?
That's hilarious.
I mean,
it totally is.
Facebook is spending like probably, I think Dean said $10 billion to really launch their Meta brand. I mean, they renamed the company Meta and are hiring 10,000 people to launch, you know, this metaverse Horizon or whatever. It's, I think that's what's really scary to people is that, you know, the idea of it is intriguing and in a perfect world would be great, but clearly the execution is really where people have their issues right now.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's just a fascinating wild west, because the NFT space in Meta is just so early. You know, it's so early right now, and you do read stories of artists putting their stuff on like OpenSea, and it's their own work, and they're like, I just made so much money off of this, and it builds this really healthy community of people who like are supporting this artist and can support them and get behind them, and now they're part of like this exclusive fan club, right? And I think, you know what, like if an artist wants to come out and be like, here's like 15 things I hand drew, and like this is a thing I did, and you want to buy it and support it, and your community loves it, cool, like you're making money off of your art, like more power to you. But it does get interesting because it is so early that you do see so many scams. And Michelle, you're talking about the price of Bored Apes, and I think right now the base price of a Bored Ape is like $250 $70,000.
Lol. Lol, everyone who fucking did that. Everyone who bought that, oh God. Okay, cool. This is like Ed Hardy, like
But
back in the day.
but what's
or
happening
something,
too
like,
is that people are getting super. I mean, you're gonna laugh when I say this, but they're getting scammed because they're selling for prices. They're selling for maybe like $30,000-$50,000 because there's so many exploits in the OpenSea system right now because it's
Mhm.
still so early. So you see people selling their apes. Actually, they're being stolen, air quotes here, for like $40,000-$50,000 when they could essentially turn around and sell them for like an additional $200,000. So it's
Wow.
still so early. So it is going to be interesting when you do get, like you said, Andrea, like the big Facebooks and whoever else is going to be in here. Are they going to decentralize, like, or what am I trying to say? It's decentralized, but are they going to centralize it, right? Are they, what
Mhm.
Then
impact
it's
is
like
it going to
defeats the
have?
entire purpose, though,
Yeah.
Like that's
So
the
what's
whole
going to
thing, is
happen?
it defeats
Yeah.
the purpose. Like just even today, there was a company called Wormhole, and somebody hacked in and stole $300 million, guys. 300 million crypto. Like it's like I don't know,
Ethereum.
ADF. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Ethereum
Ethereum.
is the main, and right now I think one Ethereum is like
That's so much money.
$2,600. Yeah, it's a lot.
It's money
wild.
laundering and stuff. It's hard because I want to be on board with this like idea of decentralization, but it's just so fraught with fraud. That how do you really get around that? And I think gamers in particular, have already dealt with microtransactions quite a bit, and understand too when you see examples like I said, Diablo 3 auction house, you kind of go, can this work? And I think it just needs to be evolved, and potentially it will make sense for that.
Yeah.
It probably just needs an evolution. But you're right that it's not going away.
Yeah, it just
Entirely.
it needs time. I like the example. And I do want to move on from this because we have lots of other stuff to talk about. But I just want to like kind of bookend this conversation with like the thing that Dean said that really resonated with me about how resistant people were to mobile games and how terrible mobile gaming
True.
development was at the beginning because it was not done by a lot of the established players in the space. And in his opinion, he kind of sees like NFTs and the metaverse there right now, that it's really kind of icky and gross right now because we're right at the beginning of it. And so you're getting a lot of people who are taking advantage of the system and, are bad actors. But that once the more established companies with good reputations get involved, that we could potentially see like the actual promise of what the NFTs and metaverse could do for good realized.
Right.
But who knows how long it's going to take to get that, how many people are going to be kind of collateral damage along the way. So
Totally.
if you guys want to listen to that whole talk, it's available on my Twitter page. I recorded it as a Twitter space. You just go to my timeline and you can find the recording there. But I do want to get to just a couple of quick news items before we move on to our next segment. But before we do that, I want to let you know that this episode of What's Good Games is brought to you by MeUndies.
Is someone you love in a relationship with somebody who tells the same joke over and over? Or are they with somebody who has the audacity to starfish the bed? That's me. Now be honest, is this somebody you? Relationships are not perfect. That's why MeUndies is celebrating our imperfectly perfect matches with their new Valentine's Day collection. We've talked about it so many times on this show. MeUndies is just the best. Andrea busted out my unicorn onesie that I used to wear all the time at your house, the purple one.
Oh,
Do you remember when you used to see me in person and I used to like wear, I was going to say I used to wear clothes in front of you, but I've always worn clothes in front of you. Anyway, I'm sure the image of me in my beautiful purple unicorn onesie stands out in your mind because I wore it all the time. It was always my go-to whenever I crashed at Andrea and John's house. And it was just like, it was my go-to. And I miss onesies and I miss slumber parties with you. Super duper comfortable. I've had it for now like 4 years. Tip-top condition. Cannot recommend the onesies enough. But anyway, going back to underwear. Are you gifting underwear for Valentine's Day? Oh, groundbreaking. But gifting matching underwear for you and your significant other? Now we're talking. Express your one-of-a-kind relationship when you match your bottom half to your better half in fun limited edition prints. If you're single, mingle in matching pairs with your friends or fam. You can even get dog hoodies or buddy bands to match your four-legged BFF. Oh my god. Be sure to check out all of MeUndies' super cute and super soft undies, socks, bralettes, loungewear, and more available in sizes extra small to 4XL. MeUndies has a great offer for our listeners. For a limited time only, get 25% off of your first order of matching pairs for Valentine's Day. And as a first-time purchaser, you can also get 15% off you can get 15% off and free shipping right to your door. To get 25% off of matching pairs, 15% off of your first order, free shipping, and a 100% satisfaction guarantee, go to MeUndies.com/WGG. That's MeUndies.com/WGG.
Now, all I can think about is how I want to see you and Reb in matching.
Oh my God.
MeUndies.
Could you imagine?
Yes, I can.
I know, me too.
Oh, amazing. So we just have a couple of quick little, in case you missed it. So word on the street, according to Jason Schreier, speaking of the Bloomberg reporter, is that Suicide Squad, the video game, is delayed until 2023. So this has not officially been announced, but generally, if Schreier's got his nose on a story, it's probably going to come true. So that, honestly, I think is a good thing for them. 2022 is loaded with games, and you know what? Take your time. Rocksteady, just take your time. No reason to rush it out. Microsoft's Activision, that's the word, of Activision Blizzard will be reviewed by the FTC, shocking no one.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm so curious if that's going to happen.
I think it will. I think what a lot of consultants have said is that they're two different entities. One's like a producer of consoles, one's a publisher of video games. For some reason, they're not the same thing. So it should go through, but you never know.
Any deal that's worth almost $70 billion is going to have the government eyes on it to be like, we should probably just take a look at this, just to make sure. Speaking of money, New York Times has bought puzzle game phenomenon Wordle for a seven-figure sum. Now, I have mixed feelings on this. One is, you know what? Good on that guy who made something for his partner, making some bank, right? Like, good for you, bro. Good for you. And the other hand, I'm like, gosh darn it. You took the good thing and you ruined it, New York Times.
Well, what I'm hoping, though, is he was so, passionate about leaving it free for everybody and having it be this, little thing that maybe that was part of why he sold it, is that they came to him because he knows that people tried to already buy it from him. So maybe they were like, what if we just do one a day and we leave it free to people? Maybe he's like, okay, for 3 years, you have to do that. I don't know. I think it's awesome. Good for him.
I did see him say that he's going to try to keep it like that, and that he's also working to keep your streaks and whatnot.
Yeah, good.
Which is great. I have never played Wordle, but I have played Loodle.
Loodle, that's from Gary Whitta and his wife. Yeah.
I'm rather good at it too, surprising no one.
I've only played one Loodle. I was going to mention it when we get to what we've been playing, but the one Loodle that I played was Twats, and I was like, yeah, this feels right. So I do want to mention in the New York Times story, they said that it will, quote, initially remain free to new and existing players. So that to me smacks of they're going to put it behind a paywall.
Legal word they threw in there.
Eventually. But you know what? That guy got paid. Good for him.
Good for him.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Good for him.
Yeah.
We stand.
Exactly. And lastly, Britt, you added this one.
I did. I thought this was kind of fun. It Takes Two is getting a TV and film adaptation. So this comes from IGN. The writers of 2020's Sonic the Hedgehog movie adaptation, Pat Casey and Josh Miller, are attached to write the It Takes Two adaptation for television. Right now, there is no studio or network on board with the project, but reports say that that's because of a multi-party bidding war for the rights.
Oh,
hey.
That's good. Good for them.
Yeah,
I like
awesome.
Sonic. I thought it was really well done. I mean, obviously a little hokey, but I think for video game movies, it was pretty good.
Fine.
Yeah. I think this is
I'm
really
always
cool.
a fan of them. I'd rather have video game movies than not have them. And that was fun.
Same. I'm with you. I think it's the key here, friends, is expectations. You know what?
Yeah.
Did I go into Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City think I'm going to get the next blockbuster Resident Evil iteration? Absolutely not.
No.
But let me tell you, I brought 5 minis with me into that theater. I finished every single one.
Yes.
I had a damn good time.
Yes. Good for
It was
you.
so fun.
Britt.
Thank you, Andrea.
Amazing.
Mama needs a break to enjoy some minis in a dark room,
Oh, absolutely.
Just watching some people getting eat by zombies, getting a little tipsy.
Absolutely.
Sounds great.
Living the life.
All right. Well, on that note, we're going to move into our next segment. When we come back, we're going to talk about what we've been playing. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. It is the second segment of the What's Good Games podcast, and it is brought to you by Fixture Gaming. Is Pokemon Legends of Arceus consuming every waking moment of your life? Well, you can catch all those pocket monsters with ease with the perfect Nintendo Switch accessory, the Fixture S1. The Fixture S1 was created by gamers for gamers who love their Nintendo Switch and their Pro Controller but want to be able to play on the go. This original patented design connects the Nintendo Switch to the Pro Controller for comfortable, precise, portable play, offering a great alternative to the Joy-Cons. Fixture S1's patented 2-axis design provides stability and balance in any playing position for optimal comfort and gaming performance. Snap your Pro Controller into the Fixture S1 for handheld play or use it as a stand in tabletop mode. In either mode, you can charge the Switch and its Pro Controller at the same time using the Fixture S1's thoughtful design that routes the power cords out the back so they never interfere with play. Now, here at What's Good Games, we've partnered with the team at Fixture Gaming to give away a custom What's Good Games Fixture S1 that you guys can win by going to our Twitter page at whatsgood_games and replying to our Fixture Gaming tweet. It's a really cool design, and if you've had your eye on the fixture since we've started talking about it on the show, now is your time to get one for free by entering to win our Fixture Gaming giveaway. All the details will be on the tweet, so be sure to go to whatsgood_games. And if you want to check out getting a Fixture S1 for yourself, you can learn more by heading to fixturegaming.com, where you can get $5 off your purchase with code WGG at checkout, or visit Fixture Gaming's Amazon page by clicking our link in the show notes. That's fixturegaming.com, where code WGG gets you $5 off of your purchase, or use our link in the show notes to visit their page on Amazon. Brittany and Michelle, wow, what a show it's been so far. You know, we've been having shows a little bit on the shorter side because Brittany and I haven't been playing as many games, but now we are getting into like thick release season for Q1. And this week is no exception. So do you guys just want to start with Pokemon before we get into the new stuff? Or you want to wait and talk Pokemon later?
Whatever you want, Brittany. It's up to you.
No, baby girl. I am going to try. Okay, here's the thing. I'm wearing a Pokemon shirt. Andrew, can you please pan to my full here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I got my Pokemon shirt. I got my Magikarp art here. You can't see. You can kind of see it over there. I got my Pokemon shrine. My name is Brittany Braunbacher, and I love Pokemon. But so far, I do not love Pokemon Arceus. Now,
dun dun dun.
Michelle, I think you enjoyed this game, so I'm really excited to hear your thoughts.
I mean,
because
like,
I will.
I'm curious.
Here's the thing. I will fully admit I am a jaded ass fan. I have never been so angry while playing a game. I literally had to I was walking and playing Pokemon Arceus, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I had to get off of my treadmill and stop and take a shot of whiskey. And I'm not lying to you. The reason is I am playing some video games right now that is very successful, but they are nowhere near as successful as Pokemon. Do they generate billions of dollars every year? No. Does Pokemon? Yes. There's absolutely no excuse why this game looks like it's something out of the 90s, why the animations are still crap, while as you're walking, the textures are just like popping in. I know I'm angry right now, and I told myself I wouldn't get too angry. I think Pokemon is, as a franchise, I love it. I think it's so fun. It has that core gameplay that hooks me. But it's so hard to be playing certain games, and then you go into Pokemon Arceus, and you're like, why? Why is this game that has literally endless funding potential, why does it look like it's something straight out of the early 2000s? And sorry, why does it play like something almost out of the early 2000s? As fun as I'm sure it's going to get, because I'm admittedly still 4 hours in, still just kind of getting out of the tutorial. Why? There's literally no excuse for it. And as fun as it is, I'm just so disappointed right now because it's.
I've been where you are. I know how you feel.
Here's the scoop: is I know I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this game. I know I'm absolutely gonna have a blast with it, and I know it could very well, if I can set my own shit aside, it could become one of my favorite Pokemon games because of the new innovations they're making. But just from a technical perspective, it is infuriating. It is literally infuriating that there has not been more resources pumped into this. That they're not taking the time to turn this into the Pokemon game it could literally be. I am a jaded fan right now, so that's just my initial thoughts. I'm being very self-aware and knowing that I haven't really gotten to the meat and potatoes
Oh
yet.
my God, you're
But
amazing.
just what I'm seeing, I know it's anyway. Okay, Andrea. I'm
Okay,
gonna pass
first
it to
of
Michelle.
all, I love you. That is so funny. I am like so just this is amazing. Okay, first of all, the first vibe I got playing it was Breath of the Wild, which was a game that endlessly bored me and put me to sleep all the time. And I hate it.
Thank you.
And like, people love Breath of the Wild though. Like I get in fights with people about it. They're mad at me. But so this has the same feeling, and I've started to play it. And here's the things: like I didn't, the first Pokemon came out when I graduated from high school, so I didn't play that right away. I didn't play Pokemon until a little older. So probably for you, you have this nostalgia for Pokemon, but to me, it's the same game every single time. And I am always like collecting the same like 20 Pokemon before I get super bored. And then I give up and I never finish killing Team Rocket or whoever it is. And but I have fun. I play it because it's mindless and I can go to sleep with it and it's fine. But interestingly, I got this game and what I like immediately is like I can run around and I can like feel like I'm in a pet battle, and I like that part a lot. I like that the fights are dynamic. That's cool to me. I like that I can move my camera around and see everything. I like that. But saying that, I have fallen asleep to it like every single night, like just like Breath of the Wild. So it might be just extremely boring, and you're totally right. But I do appreciate that it's a little less boring, at least for me, because I have no nostalgic attachment to the original. That for me, I'm like, I appreciate the different view. I'm still gonna sleep.
That's totally fair. Like you're right. Like the formula more or less has remained the same throughout the entire like existence of Pokemon. But do
you appreciate that at all? Like, do you look at that and you're like, oh well, that's cool. I can play this differently, or are you just like you did it wrong that
and that's why I'm trying to remain again self-aware and say like, you know what, at least Game Freak is doing new stuff. They are making the battles feel a little bit more real time. Like you said, you can run around now, and you do have like this much more open world that's much more open than the wild areas that were in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I appreciate that. And I think the writing in this game so far has been the best that I've seen. I've always thought that all NPCs in Pokemon sound the exact same, and I know I'm a Yakuza fangirl, but like the writing in that game, the localization team is just fucking top notch, and they add so many characters to their NPCs. And then you go to a game like Pokemon and it sounds like everyone is the same person, just in a different body. But in this one, like I feel like that's improved quite a bit. I do appreciate the steps that have been made. It's just like that bittersweet, like I see what you're trying to do, and this is what Brian said on last week. He said, it's a good step forward, and my counter to that is like, but is it a big enough step forward? And why is the question. Why, period? Like why is there not being work done? Like why are you not like cooperating with Monolith? Like why? And Brian said when he interviewed Game Freak that they said they'd like to remain a small team. Cool, but
why?
You don't need why exactly?
Because why?
Well, because they make so much fucking money. It's like they don't.
It's a step, but is it?
They don't have to.
Should they go back?
But do you think it's because they don't want to share in that success with other people? Like that's such a weird idea to kind of comprehend or grapple with. This, you have one of the most successful video game franchises of all time that has a loyal fan base of hundreds of millions of people around the world and has been for decades, but you don't have any kind of fire to innovate and do something better or do something different and innovate. Like, I honestly cannot grapple with that as like a real world thing.
Yeah. I mean, and then I'm like, okay, well, at the core of everything, Pokemon is a company, and companies exist to make money. Why would we spend $500 kajillion on developing this when we could only spend $300 kajillion?
But they could catapult it to the next stratosphere of making money, right?
And
Like,
attract
Yeah,
like new
they could.
players and get like more excitement for it. Absolutely.
or get people
but, you
who've
know,
left this franchise behind, right? Like they could
Like,
re-get
why
more
can't I
people.
take my Pokemon, Brittany? Why can you tell me that? Why can't I take my Pokemon from game to game? Why do I have to get the same Badu every time? Why can't I take Badu and move Badu to each game and have him and don't let him evolve and just let him be my friend and then have Rosalia or whatever as my, like, can I just do that? Like, why do I have to catch the same guys every time? Like,
you know, I
and
think
also like, why don't some evolve? And like,
I
why
don't
don't they all
know.
evolve? And why don't they continue making evolutions?
well, there is the Pokemon
Don't
Bank.
they like money?
Oh yeah. Have you used Pokemon Bank? I haven't dabbled in that myself, so I can't really speak to it. But I know that has been a way for you to just traditionally like take your Pokemon with you. Whether or not you can actually incorporate them into your game, I don't know. I don't know.
Then
But
what's the point? It's an NFT then.
Oh my
Pokemon
God.
NFTs.
If anybody was ripe for NFTs, it's fucking Pokemon.
Pokemon. Yeah.
Dude, I thought about that. I was like, holy crap.
Gonna knit my Pikachu.
Yeah. So I've heard a lot. It's sitting at like an 85/86 on Metacritic, which is like, you know what?
That's good.
It's
It
great.
is.
Yeah, it's good. It's great, but it's not like 95. And I'm like, you see that, Game Freak? You see that? You're failing. It's like you're not failing.
Take that minus 10%.
Take that, those negative 10 points. No, they're not failing. And like, I've read a lot of reviews, and the general consensus is a lot of folks are saying like, hey, this is my favorite Pokemon game. I appreciate the innovations, but technically, bleh, or the repetitiveness is kind of bleh. You know, so far I'm still dabbling in the Pokedex, and it's a lot of like catch 10 Starlies to fulfill this Pokedex. And I'm like, okay, cool. I don't know how that's gonna feel over like 30 hours of gameplay. I feel like that.
I mean,
would
that
be
is like any
repetitive.
like MMO or like, it's
Grindy.
like kill 10 boars or whatever.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
questing. I appreciate the questing. And I like the crafting. I think crafting is cool. I mean, they're totally making it,
Right.
it's,
And that's what I'm saying. They're doing
it's
some
even a better
interesting
crafting
things.
than Breath of the Wild, which was horrifying.
Oh my god, I love it.
Sorry.
I love different
Sorry.
personalities and different. No, don't be sorry. That's your opinion. Like, stop it.
I
Like,
hate
people
it.
don't get mad at you over a video game opinion. They can go kick rocks.
The puzzles were good.
And so that's the thing. Is like, in some ways, I thought Sword and Shield did things better.
I agree
but-
with you. I like
and-
Sword and Shield.
Right, and then you get some of these innovations with Pokemon Arceus, what the fuck? And I feel like if you can marry the two, put it on the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X, get a team of like, a few more hundred people, then maybe we're talking. But we'll see. So again, I know I've been like angry, but I've been bottling this up for like 4 days now. So
Let it out, girl. Let it
I'm
out.
so glad you did.
I almost rage
so
texted
happy.
Andrea, but I didn't.
This is
You can rage
delightful.
text me literally any time of day. You know this.
I love when people get mad about their favorite franchise. It's one of my favorite things in the world. I'm
It's
so
because
glad
we
you're
love
like
it.
this.
That's because we love it so much, and we just
Yeah.
see the potential, And anyway, so
Like
anyway,
my
that's all I'm
Destiny
gonna say about
rants.
that.
It's the same thing.
Oh, but I've never been so angry. I literally, I could only play for 45 minutes at a time before I get angry, and I rage quit. And I storm out, and Jason's like, "Are you rage quitting?" And I'm like, "Yep, sure am. I'll be back tomorrow for another round."
First of all, how cute of a mom are you? Your kid's so lucky. Like both of you guys. Like they're gonna be like, my mom's a gamer. That's so cool.
I mean, Jason's nursery is Pokemon themed.
Thank you. That's
Oh.
another. I love this fucking series so much. It means so much to me. But god damn.
I love that. You're so cute. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna angrily sip my water now.
Okay, well, angrily sip your water because I can talk about being mad about another game that just came out. Well, I guess technically it hasn't come out by the time we're recording this show, but the embargo is up for Dying Light 2. So this is a game from Techland, the people who made their claim to fame with Dead Island and then, decided to cut ties with that IP and started Dying Light. And the first Dying Light, I think by the time they patched it and added more content, became like a pretty decent game. And there's a lot of fans who really loved that game. And I think a lot of what Techland was creating with the open world parkour system and the day and night cycle of the action combat that is the zombie thriller Dying Light, it should be lauded. And we looked at Dying Light back when we did, oh my gosh, E3 2019, the last E3. Is that the last E3 of all time?
Wow,
Maybe.
that's
We-
crazy. Yeah.
We don't know. It might be the last one. I had said that I was very impressed by what I saw, but that I thought that it was very ambitious. And we were going to have to wait and see how Techland was going to let it all play out. And now they've been putting out a lot of these like Dying Light like broadcasts on their YouTube channel, kind of deep diving into systems and things like that. And so I was really interested to see like how it was all going to play out. And, you know, we're going to obviously hear from Brittany, who's played a lot more than I have. I just kind of got stuck because when I booted this game up, I literally just kind of stared at the menus for a second when I booted it up, and I was like, it doesn't really look like this, does it? Like, it looks, this looks really old. It looks bad. The graphics look bad. The fonts look bad. I was like, what's wrong? And I honestly was like, I had to like double take and was like, is this really the menu system? Checked accessibility settings. There's like virtually none, by the way, which I was really disappointed at.
Interesting.
And I was trying to look for different ways to tweak the game. There's really there wasn't a whole lot. And I just kind of was like, okay, I'm going to try to fight through this like instant, like, whoa, what's happening with the way this game looks? Because when you boot up a game in the year 2022 on an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5, not to mention if you're booting it up on your PC, you kind of expect it to look a certain way if it's a AAA open world game. And so I was really taken aback. And so I started the game. the first like quest, like the opening like tutorial quest was about like going to like smack some beehives and get some honey and chamomile. And I'm like, what's happening? What is this game? What's going on? I was like,
yeah.
I was really put off. I'm not gonna.
By the chamomile?
I think it was more about like the game, the onboarding systems for the game just felt a little lacking. And I was just like really kind of confused about like why Techland coming straight. I mean, because this is like a direct sequel to what happens in Dying Light, right? Brittany, do you know exactly like how much time has passed? It's like 6 months or something?
I think it's 6 months. Yeah, it's 6 months after the events of Dying Light, and there's a canon ending to that game, and like fuck it, like whatever shit I think is destroyed in that game. I'm pretty sure that's what happened, and so this takes 6 months. And I 100% agree with Andrea here. Dying Light 2's opening is probably one of the weakest openings I've ever seen in a game. Like, and I'm not,
Wow.
I know I just got real mad at Pokemon, so this isn't me just like, this isn't me like carrying my emotion over. Like, you know, Jason also got a review code because he and I were going to play co-op together, but co-op wasn't available, sadly. So I've talked with him about his thoughts of this game as well. I played maybe 4 or 5 hours, disclaimer. So yeah, like the opening of Dying Light 2 was just not good. It's really sad because I can think of a million different ways to open that game that would be so much more gripping and immersive and like, holy shit, like set the tone for what this game is going to be. And it's really weird. It's a weird opening. Yeah, it doesn't do the game.
Does it change the story, or like does it kind of move? I didn't play the game, so I don't really know. But like, does it just go off the rails of story, like with what you would have expected, or does it change subject? Like,
no, it does nothing. I think the reason why we're both kind of like, what's happening here is that it feels like it's weirdly hand-holdy in a way that I don't understand, but also like they expect you to know a lot. You would think if they're going to set up a game as big as Dying Light 2 is, and this game is massive, by the way, like it's going to take hundreds of hours to complete this game if you do like all of the open world content. It's really big. It's really
500
ambitious.
hours is the number they touted. Yeah.
You would think that they would have like a really impactful narrative opening that really kind of sets the stage for things to come, and instead you're just like Aiden and you're like kind of like dropped into this wilderness area, and they're like, okay, now like run around and go collect these beehives. And I'm like, wait, what? What's happening here?
This is your intro to it after everything that happened.
Yeah, it felt like a really big question mark of like narratively, like why did they make this choice? There's a lot of interesting things that they're doing that I think have potential, but I feel like this game isn't suffering from, to be clear, this isn't as bad, I think, as Cyberpunk's launch. Like when Cyberpunk launched, they had like a bazillion problems. I think this game is 100% suffering from some technical problems and bugs and glitches that they have said is going to be resolved. They quoted 1,000 bugs that are going to be resolved in their day one patch. So let me just make sure I mention that. We are playing it without the day one patch. And there's still, I think, some gameplay design problems that I think Cyberpunk also suffered from, that are like systems that have a lot of potential, but it's almost like somebody needed to come in with an editing brush and be like, let's just erase this feature off. Let's erase this feature. We don't need all of this stuff. It's like they threw every game mechanic from successful open world games and the kitchen sink at Dying Light 2. We're like, what if we just like mishmash all these gameplay systems into this giant open world and tried to make them all work together? And I'm kind of like, but why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah. Okay. So I've played, like I said, 4 or 5 hours, and Dying Light is one of my honestly like all-time favorite games to play co-op with someone. It's just it's so rare that you get those vast open world games with all the crafting and the interesting story, and like that you don't really get it that often, and that works really well. And just for full transparency, I didn't rush, because you can't really rush 4 to 5 hours, but I kind of beeline through all the main narrative because I know that co-op opens up after a specific point in the game. And so Jason and I were trying to get to that point, right? And we did. And then like the co-op didn't pop up. And I'm like, this is weird. Like, I feel like co-op should start like right about now. And then I got in touch with our PR contacts, and they said, oh yeah, that's not coming until later, closer to the actual launch of the game. So at that point, I was understandably like a little frustrated, and I was like, all right, like, I'll just wait. We'll wait. We'll play it closer to launch together. So I haven't picked it up since. And that was maybe a week or so ago. But when I think of Dying Light and what makes that game so much fun, it's obviously like the parkour is fun, the traversal. You're sticking to the rooftops, because if you go down in the streets, you're going to get overwhelmed by infected, especially in the nighttime, because there is that day-night cycle. And Andrew, I'm not trying to take over this conversation, so just like feel free to jump in whenever. But there's all the scavenging in the buildings, right, to get crafting materials, because the crafting in this game, you get some of the most badass weapons. You get swords that electrify enemies. You get swords that just like, and the combat is visceral, and it's a really fun game. But I didn't get the full breadth of that during my time with it, because I was just trying to like get through the missions. And I felt like the NPCs that you meet are pretty interesting. Like, I thought they were well written and kind of fun, and definitely way more interesting than the main character, whose name is Aiden. And he is probably the most generic, boring ass person. Like, he's like a paper bag. Right?
He sucks. I'm just gonna say.
No, and I agree with you. Like, he does.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up, because like that's one of the things that Techland does really well, is this crunchy melee combat, because there's no guns in this world, right? Like, they've made like a narrative reason for there not to be guns, and it's like all melee all the time. And I think it's why people really loved the original Dead Island, is because like they did that combat, that melee combat with the zombies really well. And they do have a really deep, crafting system, and you can make really cool weapons. And I think that there's something to be said for that. But I think, what's really tough about that is I think they kind of buried a lot of the best of this game a little too deep into this game, because it's too big. And that's why
takes a while to get there.
Right. And so I go back to it being like, is this too ambitious for a sequel for a game that did well, but wasn't exactly a game that sold 25 million copies, right?
Right.
So it's like, maybe it needed the game director or the creative director to come in and say, like, how are we going to shape the gameplay experience for players in Dying Light 2, particularly for people who never played the original Dying Light? How are we going to handhold them so that they can still have a really great time to get to the really fun part of the game, which is the parkour system, right? I've seen like plenty of people making jokes about parkour in the era that we're in. We're like, are we still talking about parkour like it's a legitimate thing? And I can't not hear The Office, the people from the sitcom The Office being like, parkour.
Totally.
It's just so stupid and amazing. But like that to me is still why this game shines. Not to mention like the day and night cycle is absolutely worth commending them for. But like the parkour system is buried underneath almost 20 hours of RPG progression.
Wow.
And you can't even
Wow.
get, like, when you start the game, like, who starts a game about parkour movement in an open world without a fucking slide and they lock it behind an RPG progression? I'm like, why? Everybody has slide in their
Doesn't make
video
any
game
sense.
now.
Yeah.
Like, don't block it behind a skill tree.
Mhm.
What? So I think
Yeah.
that there's a lot of potential with this game to be really amazing, but I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit with some of the choices that they made with how the game unfolds. And that's kind of a bummer because this clearly is an amazing amount of work that the team put in. And I think that there's a gem of a game buried underneath some bad editorial decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at
Interesting.
the first Dying Light, I think last I checked, it sold around 16, 17 million copies. Like, this is a beloved franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at the history and again, like the rumors we've seen with the development of this game, it went through some hurdles and some bumps.
Yes.
And so the fact that it didn't live up to these glorious E3 presentations that we saw, like, it's not surprising. And, you know, another good lesson to us is like, yo, like, just because something looks so fucking good in like a 30-40 minute presentation,
I think we would have
Andrea
learned after
called it,
Watch
though.
Dogs.
Andrea was like, this is too ambitious, guys. She knew right away.
she knew. You look at like Dying Light 2, you look at Cyberpunk, like, we were all like, woohoo. It's just another like little lesson learned. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm with Andrea. I think I'm going to enjoy this game more than she is going to, probably because I'm going to be playing it co-op. And I think for me, like, that makes it so much more enjoyable. I'm excited to like take my time and look into every room that I can find and craft all the things and like really dig into those
What are you
systems.
playing it on?
I'm playing on Xbox Series X.
So when you guys play, does your husband have his own as well?
Yeah.
His own
yeah.
Xbox, and you guys play? Okay. So
Yep,
it's not
yep,
like a
yep.
couch co-op, something like Diablo.
No, yeah, we
Okay.
have
No
side-by-side,
split screen, yeah.
TVs.
Got it.
Yeah. So yeah, like, and once I did kind of get past the tutorial phase that Andrea was talking about, and I was running around the rooftops and talking to the NPCs and kind of like getting integrated, I was like, okay, like, I can see a lot of potential in this, but I really want to play with Jason, so I'm going to come back to this later. I just never got to come back to it because co-op wasn't available. So I'm sure he and I will play a lot of it this weekend, and then I'll talk about it next week. But we'll see.
Brittany, before we kind of wrap this up, and just to be clear, everybody, I'm not saying this game isn't going to be a really fun game. I have a feeling that this game is going to be very similar to Days Gone in the sense that the early critical reception was very mixed, with a lot of people being like, this game feels like it's a little like there's some bad decisions, it's unfinished, some of the gameplay systems are kind of half-baked. But then once it got out into the wild, players were like, this game's fucking amazing. I love it. I'm having a great time. I feel like Dying Light's going to have no problem being successful because at its core, it's a fun melee zombie game with really cool traversal system. That said, Brittany, I feel like I'm a little delusional when I look at this game and think that it looks like straight from like Xbox 360, which is why I mentioned that Eurogamer review on Twitter when they were like, this looks like an Xbox 360 game. I was like, thank God it's not just me.
No. There's something definitely a little off about it. There are moments when I'm looking at an NPC and I'm like, you look really good. Or if I'm like looking and the sun is hitting a building just right, I'm like, this looks really good. But there's this weird effect and I don't know what it is. It's like it's in the beginning of the game and you're kind of looking at this fallish setting around you. Like the trees all kind of turn color. It's all kind of like orangey and reds and like some little greens in there. It looks like one big blob. It's weird. Like I'm staring at it and I'm like, at a glance, I can't tell.
Textures.
Really...
There's no textures on the grass. The lighting is all wrong. The shading. Yeah, like I honestly I booted it up and like I was like, in a world where games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla exist, Horizon Zero Dawn exists, big open world games that have amazing art. Games like, I mean, Ghost of Tsushima is a beautiful game that came out on PS4, right? Like last generation. And this game's in 2022. And I booted it up and I was like, how does this game look like this? And to me, it almost smacks of they decided to use engine resources, right? Because like Techland's whole thing was like they rebuilt their engine and did a new engine for this game. And they wanted to really push the boundaries again, maybe over ambitiously, of what they were doing in this game. And I think they're using, just my personal theory is they're using too many engine resources to run gameplay systems and not enough to run artwork. And so I'm like, well, maybe that's it. I don't know.
Yeah,
It just
it's hard to say. Yeah,
it's
you're right.
disappointing though, because like even next to games that are 4 or 5 years old or older,
Why'd they put this out then? Like, if I mean, they've got to know. They got to look at that and be like, I mean, maybe they had to set a deadline, and I don't know, but that seems like a
I mean, I don't want to be too like critical of. I mean, I see what Andrea is saying. Like, it's not like, well, why did they put this out? I think the game is still going to be a lot of fun. I just
Yeah.
think, when you look at a studio's strengths and weaknesses, I don't know if
Mhm.
this studio's particular strength comes into the resolutions. And there is a high res mode that probably would look a lot better. I was playing on performance, but yeah, like it just the environment just wasn't like distinct enough. Like you kind of had to like look around and be like, what am I looking at here? Okay, that's grass. Okay, like that's a river. Okay, that's like a little like riverbank, and that's like a tree over there or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just like one of those mixed things where I think it's going to do a lot of things really well, but there's just those studio weaknesses, and I think that's just kind of like what you get, especially if you look at the troubled history of this game. And um we'll just see. I mean, I know the core audience is probably still going to love it, but it's
oh,
just they love it.
100%. Yeah.
They love it for not the story. They love it for not the main character, not even necessarily the graphics, but it's the crafting, it's the parkouring, it's the day-night cycle, it's those like really tense moments, and I think they're gonna have
Yeah.
a lot of fun with it. But yeah, it just didn't live up to all of the hype that I think we had all kind of been
Hoping
I
for.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I
Okay.
think this game will be great in like 6 months after they've patched it a bit.
1,000 patches, little bug fixes.
Just
Let's go.
maybe don't buy it at launch. Maybe buy it later.
Yeah, I think
don't
that's
know.
actually great advice. Really, it really is.
All
Know
Xbox
what you're
needs to do
getting.
is come in and swoop it up
It's a
for
pro
Game
tip.
Swoop it up for Game Pass. Give them some money and we'll all be good.
Yeah, that's
It'd
true.
be great.
That's a good
It'd be
point.
great. Okay, Michelle, before Brittany and I talk about our preview of Ghostwire Tokyo, which we're very
Ooh,
excited to talk
that's
about.
exciting.
I want to know from you if there's another game that you've been playing that you'd like to chat about. I know you've been playing some things that are not like quote new, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I started to play Final Fantasy 14, which for me is a big deal because I've always been a pretty big WoW girl. So I got really frustrated with the story. So as you guys know with your games, like with Dying Light, like I'm very frustrated with the way they handled Sylvanas Windrunner for a lot of reasons, and I just my team we did a great job, and we went through all the rating content, and now we're just sort of it's kind of in a lull anyway. And I decided to try out Final Fantasy 14, which is it's beautiful. Like it's a beautiful game, and I look at WoW now and I'm like, huh, why don't you look prettier? But but I have all my NFTs in that game, and
oh
them are there.
snap!
all of my it's so funny. It's like, how much money have I spent on that game in 14 years of playing it? It's like so many in-game items. I'm so embarrassed. But I'm having a lot of fun with this. I like that there's so many different classes that you can play. And so many, like they call it, jobs, I guess. I like that you can have one character, and that one character can be all the classes, instead of in like World of Warcraft, where like I have an attachment to my main character and I always only level her and raid with her. But I like to try out other classes. It would be cool if that main character of mine could just do other classes, and which is what they have in Final Fantasy 14. So you can like have your one character and be like, I want to be a tank now, or never mind, I want to be a healer, and you don't have to just be a paladin for that. Like you can do other things. So I'm excited. I will say that I haven't been able to get on the server that I want, so I'm only level 10 on like I just wanted to kind of get in there and start playing. A friend of mine bought me the game as like a gift and like 30 days of game time. So I just started to kind of like dip my toes in, and I'm hoping that the server opens up. But I guess like there's a bunch of streamers on this server, Genova or something, and it's really hard to get in because of that. So I want to play with my friends on that server, but because there's a chip shortage, Square Enix can't like create more servers or make it so that other servers can like cross faction as easily. So I think that game is being really held up its success is really being held up because I think a lot of people really want to play. Like if I can take my own experience, and I'm a reluctant player. You think about like people who are actually like really, can't wait to play Final Fantasy was not like something that was ever really in my realm. So like for people who followed Final Fantasy forever and ever and ever, like they want to play this. You can play, but you might not be able to play with your friends. So, but they're suffering from the chip shortage thing. So I kind of hope that they get it figured out because it's a lot of fun so far. I'm really impressed with the combat. I'm really impressed with the multiplayer even. It's awesome. Yeah. I don't know if you guys played it, but I find it fascinating in comparison.
Well, a friend of mine is playing, who's been doing some of these Twitter spaces with me, as I mentioned. Her name is Lauren Wilson. And she was talking about how bad the loading times and the wait times are. How she'll like boot up Final Fantasy and then she'll like just like be in a queue for like an hour and she'll go play something else, like waiting to get in to like do her dailies. I'm like, wait, how is this still a thing?
Because of the chip shortage.
Yeah.
Yeah. They can't do anything, which is crazy if you think about it. Like that game is like, I bet you that game would have just blown just the roof off of it. Like with subscribers and new people coming in, like especially after everything happened with Activision, everyone was jumping ship. Yeah. I just have a feeling that they would have been even more successful had this chip shit not happened.
Yeah.
Chip shit.
That's stupid.
But I'm having fun though.
Good.
I want to get in there more. I'm having a really cute dragon girl. Right now I made a sexy bunny, so that's exciting.
Yes.
Okay. Go on. Sexy bunny. Are we talking like Playboy bunny? Sexy bunny?
Like, okay, first of all, her outfit when you start is like she came right out of the mansion. She's like cutouts and lace and ears, and she is sexy. Like I'm talking a thong, guys. Like right up her butt. And I was like, she's starting like this. And like she gets into a buggy and there's like a Moogle guy there. Just like this furry guy with a balloon talking to her. And it was awesome. It's like, I like this game already. But that's her starting outfit. I was like, if this is her starting outfit, like, where is this going? Because like, she's walking into this town looking like a real hoe. But like, I stand. Like, good for her. Good for her.
A metallic thong next, Michelle, and it's gonna give you like plus 50 armor.
I'm so excited for that. My husband was like, he made a bunny guy too, and he was just like, I got clothes like right away, and he like when I was like getting my quests done, and he's like, oh, I don't even recognize you. Like, what happened to her?
Clothes happened.
So yeah, that's been fun. We've just been playing that. And I've been playing The Witcher 3 on Switch just because it's a little more intimate than I've played it before. And I think I was always playing it when I was like streaming or doing something. So I never got to just have a really my own intimate experience doing every quest line that I want and playing it like that. So I've been really enjoying it on the Switch for that.
Oh, that's a game that I would love to go back. I never actually finished that game. I've played it a bunch over the years, but never like saw it all the way to the end. And I really like want to because it's like still to this day like one of the best RPGs ever made. So yeah,
it's awesome, and I like it on the Switch, like because you just kind of sort of pick it up, and especially if you've kind of played it before, I think, and you can always put it on the TV. I mean, I do that all the time.
Exactly.
But anyway, yeah, those are my games.
All right. Well, we got to get a behind-the-scenes look at Ghostwire Tokyo. So Brittany and I were invited to go and see this presentation by Bethesda. So thank you to them for inviting us. And I have to say, like, I walked to this presentation, Britt, like, really intrigued. I really enjoyed The Evil Within from Tango a lot more than I thought I was going to. And so I was like, what are they going to do with Ghostwire? Let's take a look. I, though, want to hear your thoughts first because I think you, as our resident horror video game connoisseur / enthusiast, I want to hear kind of like what you think is going down. And I do have some B-roll that they provided for us as well that I'm going to be showing.
Bring it up, baby girl, and I'll take you down the Ghostwire Tokyo path. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Ghostwire Tokyo is the next action-adventure game by Tango, founded by Shinji Mikami, who is also known as the father of survival horror. You may have heard of a little Resident Evil franchise. Well, you can thank mostly him for that. In Ghostwire Tokyo, you follow a young man named Akito, and he finds himself fused with this ghost hunter presence spirit, if you will, named KK. And together they are exploring Tokyo in pursuit of, and I quote, the truth. You have to track down the mastermind Hanya, or Hanya, I think is how you say it, which in Japanese culture and lore is it's a demonic woman, I believe. She's like very jealous demonic woman. And you know, she has like the horns and like the if you've seen my husband Goro Majima from Yakuza, it's the thing that's tattooed on his back. Actually, Andrea.
Oh,
just-
a prop?
Oh, well, you see, I can take it off. Okay. That, my friends, is see the face, the
Oh,
gold
you know,
eyes.
we definitely see the face.
Oh yeah. Okay, so that's Hanya. And anyway, Hanya mask, and it's a man wearing the mask. Anyway, that's who you're trying to track down. Anywho, and along the way, you're trying to find his family, and you're in Shibuya, and a whole bunch of souls have vanished, and you're kind of like, what the fuck? Why is this happening? And you use this power, it's called your ethereal weaving, to save people. And it kind of gives me some Bioshocky vibes. And you use it to exercise the threats, aka the enemies, which I believe are called the, oh God, what are they called? They have a name. I can't remember exactly what the name is off the top of my head. Anywho, you have to get rid of all of them. You got to save spirits. You got to find your family. And that is exactly what you were doing in Ghostwire Tokyo. And I think what's really cool about it, and the takeaway I had, was how fun the combat looked. So it's called, again, ethereal weaving, and your main dude, Akito, he kind of like uses these like really like wild hand movements, and you have all these like flashing colors and strings of light floating like light particles, and you're just watching that like happen in front of you. And then on top of that, you know, you can use like your bow as well to shoot enemies, and then you're trying to make these enemies weak enough where you're pulling these cores out. And I'm not entirely sure what the cores are used for, but you weaken them enough, you pull out the core, and that's kind of like, it looks like the main point of the combat is to collect them. I know you use the spirits you collect, aka the people who have vanished from Shibuya, to turn them into a phone booth. I know this sounds wild, and it is, but like, let's go with it here. You use a little paper handout called a, oh gosh, I don't remember what, a katashiro, here it is, and that's a traditional Japanese paper doll. Anyway, you use that to absorb the spirits of people in Shibuya, and you give them to the phone booth, and then that turns into money and experience points, and then you can go down the huge like XP tree. Anywho, the vibe I really got from this was like, okay, like the combat itself looks a lot like Bioshock in the sense that you have these really cool things happening in front of you, and wandering around the streets of Shibuya, they're pretty much deserted at this point because everyone's vanished. You don't really know why. I thought it looked really fun. I thought, you know, it again, like this is like my jam, right? This is 100% up my alley. You have these creepy Japanese monsters, you know, according to Japanese lore, and you have these neon lights. It's rainy out. It's dark. It's creepy. Like this is exactly what I kind of been looking for. That said, though, we didn't get a lot of talk, I feel, about like, I want to see more of the story of this game. The gameplay looks fun as hell, but I'm also just really intrigued. Like, where is Shinji Mikami going with the story of this? It doesn't look like it's going to be incredibly like creepy, like super scary, jump scare creepy, but more of like a psychological scare, which I think is kind of fun. But there are also like these really fun little lighthearted moments where you'll be in a kombini, a convenience store, and there's this yokai cat, and he sells you like all these cute like random things that you're gonna need, not cute random, but like items you're gonna need for your adventure. So I think there's gonna be some of that like weird humor sprinkled in there as well. It has a very unique vibe, and I didn't really know what to expect going into this preview, but it definitely was like a little different from what I was expecting, not in a bad way, but just in a okay, like this is heavily focused on combat, just from what we've seen in the preview anyway. And I'm kind of more curious about the narrative. We just didn't get a heck of a lot of it. Anyway, I've talked enough. Go on with your bad self, baby girl.
No, thank you for that excellent kind of summary about what the game is and what kind of the gameplay is about. I think I left with more questions than answers from this preview event. A lot of what I was really kind of hoping to see was maybe some explanation about like what's going on with the gameplay and what's happening, you know, with these cores and what you're doing. And I think like that was really what I was missing from, and we didn't get the chance to talk to the developers, which is, you know, one of the downsides to these digital events that we're doing. It's great that we get to, you know, kind of like attend virtually, but it means that there's some of that missing, like, hey, can you explain this thing to me, that you don't get to ask them like on site. But That being
Mhm.
said, what I'm really intrigued with is how the combat is going to work, because I'm going to bring up some more of the combat from the B-roll that they provided us here. So like, bow and arrows, like, we know how that works. But for me, it's like all of these hand gestures. It's going to be interesting how weighty it feels when you actually get, like either your controller in your hand or your mouse and keyboard, however you're planning on playing. Because it just feels a little bit more, I don't know what
Flashy and for show.
yeah, it feels like almost like a little bit lighter than I want it to be. Like I want it to have weight, and I don't know how like this magic casting is going to work. And I think the thing that's really, the thing I have the question about is like, where did you just suddenly get all of these like magical abilities from? Because you're supposed to be like a regular old human. You're not like a mage or a wizard or anything, right? This isn't like some high fantasy. You're set in like modern day Tokyo, right? And so it's like, where is all this coming from? And I think that was maybe what was missing from our presentation, is kind of like the genesis of how you get to where you are and how you get those powers, which obviously is going to be something that they're going to explain narratively. At least you assume that they're going to explain narratively when you play the game, right?
They're probably getting there.
Yeah, and like I have to imagine that the reason they left it out of this preview event is because they specifically did it because they didn't want to spoil anything narratively, right?
Yeah,
That happens a
yeah.
lot, right? When we see these preview events, like you leave with these questions like, but why? And they're like, it'll all become clear when you play the game, but we don't want to spoil it. I'm like, okay, that's sort of fair, but also like, dog, I'm so confused. But
Yeah.
the game looks great, and I was really impressed with what Tango did with The Evil Within and The Evil Within 2. I liked those games a lot more than I thought I was going to. And, if they're on a new quest to make a new environment with some new combat and magic, I'm here for it. I'm definitely like really confused why Slender Man is everywhere.
And that's actually a really good, that's a good point
my
you bring up.
gosh.
I really, again, like I've talked about, like I'm studying Japanese. I want to like learn more about like the Japanese culture, and a lot of these enemies we're seeing, I think they have some significance to that. Even the little doll, the Katashiro doll that I was talking about. I hope there's almost like a little in-game like codex, if you will, of
Yeah.
explanations of like what these are, because I think it's really cool that they're really leaning into all of these things that like we in the West, like we don't really know about. And I think that's awesome, because generally, you're worried that people are going to go light on the culture and light on that kind of lore stuff, because like it doesn't really make sense for the West. So I love that they're really leaning into it, but I think it would be really fascinating to kind of get an explanation of like that creature in the sky right now on YouTube. That's a Tengu. Like what is that? And like why is that significant? And I think that would just be so cool. Yeah, and when it comes to the abilities you have, like I have just kind of like what I've surmised is, I know you're like a regular dude. You end up fusing with the spirit hunter, and you actually go to his apartment at one point in the preview that we saw, and you kind of get a little bit of backstory about him and like how he ran with these like other ghost hunters, and then he was led astray by something or another, and you find like this weird glowing purple bow in one of his chests, and he's like, oh, so you were like someone ordinary, or Akito kind of alludes to the fact that like, you weren't a normal person. And so I'm wondering if fusing with KK kind of like gives you those weird powers, but again, like we don't know to what extent or how that actually makes sense. Then again, it doesn't make sense that like 100,000 people are out of Shibuya, or how many people are out of there. The other thing that I thought was kind of fun too is, as you're playing, because you really are like the only like sort of kind of air quote here human person there, you have KK kind of talking to you, and there's a lot of dialogue. And Akito seems like he's this more like reserved, chill dude, where Akito kind of has like this little like like spark and sense of humor, a little bite to him. So I think that could make for a lot of interesting dialogue as you're playing. And there were some side quests that we saw in the gameplay as well, and it was kind of creepy, like leaving crackers on some shrine to summon some demon girl or something or another. And there are some timed elements too, as when you're running through a building, you have to find these 3 cores to destroy this barrier that's outside this building you're in, because you're trapped if you don't do it. And it is a timed event. I thought that could be kind of interesting, kind of stressful, who could say. And they did some really interesting things as you're walking around Shibuya. You have like glitches around the environment, like things that shouldn't be the way they are. Like there's bicycles hanging off the sides of buildings, and it's like, that doesn't make any sense. But clearly that leans into the story itself. It reminds me a lot of the Fade in Dragon Age. If anyone's played a Dragon Age game, the Fade is just kind of this otherworldly realm that doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's kind of what they've done with this environment we're in. Anyway, like I said, totally up my alley. I'm really excited to learn more. And I think the combat looks really interesting and fun. I just kind of want to learn more about the story. And I hope there's a little bit more. There's Hanya, man. A little bit more interaction. So.
I want to give them a shout out, though, for what I think so far is a really great recreation of Shibuya. I didn't get to spend like a ton of time there when I went to Japan for TGS, but watching this gameplay demo during this event, I was like, wow, it really feels like how I felt walking the streets of Japan, the vending on the street, the really kind of closed in alleyways. And I think stylistically, obviously that team knows exactly the ins and outs of Shibuya. And I think, it's going to be a really fun game to kind of traverse, especially if you've actually been to Tokyo. So lots to look forward to. I think that this game has some really, really...
Spellcasting looks really cool. Like, that looks very fun. That's up my alley.
Yeah. And there's, like Brittany said, there's a lot of direct references to deep Japanese folklore in the game and gameplay elements, and so how deep they're going to go down that rabbit hole, and how many different types of kind of nods to Japanese folklore we're going to see in, like, not only enemy types but kind of like these little tchotchkes and things that you use throughout the world. I think is going to be really fascinating.
Yeah, it's cool.
So yeah, the game so far looks good.
Looks like it'd be fun in VR.
Just confused.
Too.
Oh, it'd be terrifying in VR. No thanks.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
So cool.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Y'all are crazy. Well, listen, we have a couple questions that we wanted to ask you, Michelle, while we have you here. Most notably, I think something that I was really intrigued by that you have been working on recently, and something that one of our patrons wrote in about was, might you ask Michelle, writes Daniel Hull, when is she going to write her next Celestial Body book, and has she stepped up her Wordle game? So speaking of Celestial Bodies, you have a Moontime planner. Can you tell us a little bit more about what this is?
Yeah, it's so silly, guys. This is like pandemic. I wanted to create something for myself, and in doing so, I like planners and like journals and stuff. Like, I've always liked that. I've got a million of them. I don't know if you guys are those kinds of girls too, but I have lots of them. And I kept finding that I was carrying like 3 books around the house with me all the time, because I'd have one that was a journal, and one that was kind of more like calendar based, and one that was like more of like a planner, but it had like daily spreads. Like, so I had all these different systems, and I was like, well, what if I just put them all in one? And I've always been really into like tarot. This is just like my hobby. Like, on like the things that I like to do. I collect tarot cards. I've been having so much fun with that like since high school. So anyway, I thought there's something kind of during the pandemic to find motivation and to stay on course, and to, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys went through this. Everybody kind of went through this of like, just making sure that you continue to have purpose as you move forward. The phases of the moon kind of like help you do that. Like, when it's new and you set new intentions. And then as the moon grows to the full moon, you're growing your intentions as well. And then when it's at the full moon, you kind of stop and recognize what you've been able to accomplish in the last couple of weeks. And then you take the next couple of weeks to sort of reflect and refine. So it's just sort of like a little cycle to get onto that for me helps me with project planning and creativity, because I can ask myself, how I set up the planner was that every day you can see what phase the moon is in, and it will ask you a question that's based on the moon phase and also based on the astrological sign that the moon is in. And that changes every couple days. So it's just kind of a fun thing to like, if you're into like planners and you like actually like to write it out, like pen and paper, which I do, it'll have everything in there so that you can like have a couple journal prompts if you want to answer them. If you don't have to. But I made it for myself, and I taught myself how to use InDesign. And my husband kind of helped me with it too, because he's a coder, so he helped me with certain like templates and stuff. But I drew it all out and I just had fun with it. I don't know. It's just a silly side thing that I decided to do because I was like, well, if I want it, I have a couple friends who were like, oh, I want one. Can you print one for me? And then I was looking at how much printing costs for this one fucking book. And you know, so I was like, well, maybe I just like put it up on Amazon and then I can order it for myself because it doesn't cost anything to do that. Like I'll just put it up there and order it myself. And then maybe other people want to order it too. And it's done really well. So I'm going to put like to answer Daniel Hall, the second quarter should be up by the end of the month. So
That's so cool.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and you have great reviews on Amazon, by the way. I don't know if you've looked at your reviews recently.
I have not.
I mean, I have a problem whenever I buy anything. I'm like, let me read all of the reviews.
I totally
make sure
do
it's
that.
like,
Yeah,
oh, it's terrible. Like, it's
Haven't
okay to buy
looked.
something without reading reviews, but your reviews are great.
That's amazing.
And I'm with
Really?
you that I love planning on paper. There's something about physically writing it out that feels like it cements it more in my brain than using planner apps. And I've tried lots of planner apps and I always like abandon them for literally
I can
just
do,
a pad
like-
of paper.
Like Google Calendar, I can use my calendar. I'm really attached to that. And I have a to-do list that I use, but any planner app, I've never been able to do.
Yeah.
I always say I'm going to use it and then I don't. I just forget
Yeah.
about it and it doesn't happen. I love that. So what's it called? Like the official title of it?
Moontime Planner. Here's mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that you have it right there. It's great.
Oh,
That's on my
yes.
desk. Yeah,
Moontime
it's
Planner.
cool.
And if you're
I like it.
interested and you're listening, you're like, ooh, I want to check out Michelle's planner. We have her links in the show notes. Be sure to click on that and it'll take you to her link tree where you can get to her Amazon page. So you can
Just
check
go
out.
to moontimeplanner.com. It'll take you there too. Like,
Awesome.
you
There you
know,
go.
but yeah, if you guys, I'd love to send you guys a copy. If you guys want one, I'd love to send them to you.
Yes, that'd be amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just for this quarter, but you know, I'll get your addresses and I'll send you guys both one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. No, I was mentioning your Amazon influencer page because some people on this show may realize that I have a TikTok problem. And because of that, almost all the people that I find on TikTok who are doing like cleaning talk or ADHD talk or whatever have like these Amazon pages, their influencer pages where all of the, you know, things that they show in their TikToks you can buy. And I found yours and it's full of all these amazing kind of like self-care items. And in particular, you have a ton of crystals.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of hear about how you got into crystals and like the healing power of crystals. Because I know some people kind of feel like it's like very like granola hippy dippy and like,
It
ooh,
is.
they're
It
just
is.
rocks.
I don't
But I'm
know.
like, I
I
don't
think
know.
it's
I
fun.
think it's
They're
cool.
They're pretty and they're fun. And like, you know, my husband will be like, did you just spend money on fancy rocks? And I'm like, I did to do that. And make me feel good. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, some of my best girlfriends that I've had for like 20 years, like, you know, it'll be like gifts that we'll give each other for Christmas or for birthdays or whatever, like give a nice crystal or something cute that you can put in your house. And, but over the pandemic, I realized I had so many of them, you guys. Like I have them like on my desk. Like so many people have just like given them to me, or I just like people like, you know how people give each other like salt and pepper shakers and stuff, or like something. Like a lot of people have given me crystals, so I decided to like catalog them and like read about what they do or like what their like meaning is or whatever. So I mean, mostly I just think they're pretty, and you know, there's ones that they say like you should carry with you if you want to feel a certain way. And you know, I just think that if you have something around that you vibe with that like makes you feel good, whatever it is, if it's artwork or whatever, like having those things around you that inspire you or make you feel good, like, you know, this one that I was like super drawn to, it was so beautiful. It was like this bright yellow crystal. And I was like, oh, that's gorgeous. And I had it on my desk for a while until I realized it was sulfur. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't have it by like where the cats sit. Because it would kill my animals. So you have to be careful, guys. Like when you get it, like
Just because it's
look it
pretty
up.
doesn't mean it's not toxic.
It'll
Oh my
kill you, like, or dissolve your body. So just be careful. What is happening?
Oh, is
My
that a cat?
My cat was like,
Yes.
what?
She's like, yeah, bitch, you
Yes.
tried to kill me with sulfur rocks.
He's like, bitch. I think, hold on, that's Zeus. One second. I'm going to show you guys Zeus. One second.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes.
Let's see Zeus.
Zeus.
Zeus. We
Zeus,
love cat. We love cat
Zeus,
appearances.
Zeus. I know. I should bring Reb on the show more. He's just too crazy. I can't.
Oh, I haven't seen Reb in so long though.
I know. He lost a lot of weight. He's not
Did
fat
he?
anymore. Yeah,
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's look.
Oh my god. I
Look at
see
the
why Zeus-
fluff.
Look at where's the cat? All I see is fur. I don't see a cat.
Zeus.
I see a
Zeus.
fluff ball.
Oh my gosh.
YouTube.com/what'sgoodgames
I love
for
you.
the content.
If you want the floofy cat content,
Oh my goodness.
amazing.
That's Zeus. He's the greatest.
Zeus.
Yeah, he's wonderful. Anyway, so yeah, if you want to get a Moontime planner, guys, I'm gonna send you guys one, and if anyone wants one, just you know where to go.
Click the link in the show notes. Yeah.
More quarters will be available soon. And I'm going to be upgrading it. Like right now with self-publishing, I can really only I can't put like bookmarks, and I can't put stickers with it or artwork and stuff. So I'm trying to get a publisher and work with somebody that I can do art with. So we'll see. It's just a
Yeah.
fun little side thing. Why not?
It's cool. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
we were going to talk about some of the cool projects you're working on, but they're all like top secret. So we can't.
Oh yeah, it's so
But
important.
I mean, since we have you here, we didn't get a chance to really talk about it, but you have clearly a long history with working with Blizzard. And I would love to hear your thoughts on what you think about them being acquired by Microsoft Gaming, and if you think that's good for Blizzard. And like there are subsequent, I know we talked about Diablo for a minute there, but you know, good for WoW, good for everything else they're doing. Does this mean StarCraft's coming back? Like what do you think
I'm
as,
sure
as
they'll
like
figure that
as a
out.
big Blizzard someone who's worked on BlizzCon for so many years?
Gosh, I do think it's a good thing for them, in the sense of like it's good for the employees. And I think that, I mean, look, Bobby Kotick's going to get a golden parachute out of this. Like that guy is, he's, whatever, but like maybe
We
it's
always
better
knew
that
he was going to, though, right? Like no matter if
Everyone.
Microsoft bought
Yeah.
him or if he just exited, like he was always going to be the guy who got to like sail off into the sunset with his
Yep.
millions of dollars, no matter what egregious atrocities he committed
Yeah.
during his time.
He's Logan
Yeah.
Roy. He is like Succession. Like the guy is like, he's fortified by his like best friends on the board. Like nothing's happening to that guy. Like, and he like the fact that he even blamed their tanking stock prices on the devs to say like, oh, well, they didn't like push out Overwatch 2 fast enough. Or like, you just kind of go, oh boy, dude, like, come on. Yeah. So I think it's at the end of the day, regardless of him, like of what he gets and how he gets away with it. I think it's really good for the company, and all in all, I think Phil is like a way better leader, and I think they'll be happier there and be able to have just a better environment. Like not that like Microsoft has always been perfect. I'm not saying that at all.
course,
Like
yeah.
Ninja said he didn't want to play with women, and then they were like, how's 50 million? So there's not always like
Yeah.
a perfect scenario, but I do think that it's a better scenario, and I do think that they're probably a better studio for everything, to have the studio there. I think that it's going to be better in the long run. Yeah, it was shocking though. I mean, I didn't know anything about it, so I hadn't heard anything.
Yeah, well, according to like insider talks, it came together rather quickly. Like I had thought like that a deal of that magnitude had been in the works for a while, but then we get some kind of insider info after the fact that's like, oh, actually, Microsoft just decided to spend $70 billion on a whim.
The thing that frustrates me probably the most in it, like if I were to look at the frustrating part, is that the stock price fell and became low because women were harassed and abused and not paid the same, not paid equal, and the fact that became an inviting price point, even though like Xbox or Microsoft still paid over the price point.
They paid the pre-lawsuit price. Yeah.
Yeah. But who knows what it would have been at or whatnot. But I think it just made it inviting to make that sale even possible, because I think they know they need to do it. So it kind of sucks that in one way, like, I don't know if the women are really going to see any kind of money in this. And if it's just like a bunch of dudes like profiting off the fact that this became possible because women came forward, and are those women even being taken care of? Like, you look at like the fact that the federal lawsuit is being handled and settled, but the state lawsuit is not, and that's in a big disarray right now, you know? So I don't know if those women are ever going to get paid. I mean, Riot just settled theirs for like what, 100 million, like, but it was like a week ago. I mean, people forget, like, pretty sure everyone was like super stoked about Arcane coming out and forgot the fact that they haven't settled with any of the women in that lawsuit. So I don't know. I'm glad that it's going to happen because it's going to be in a better spot, but I am like kind of go, that sucks, man. I really hope that the women get properly taken care of, you know? That's what I hope.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's like, is that ever going to happen? How do you go back and give restitution to women over literally decades worth of abuses that are coming to light? And is there a way to do that? And you know, I don't have the answers for that. And the only thing I can say to echo what you mentioned was that it feels like a better step in the right direction, the new leadership underneath Phil Spencer's team. And I think that based off what I've heard from people who have been internal at Xbox, everything seems to be pretty positive there. Obviously, there's always going to be bad actors, bad apples, whatever you want to call them, everywhere. But you know, all we can hope is that the people at the top that are moving the needle are doing their due diligence to make the trickle down actually work, and not just have a bunch of fluff for a PR bump, but to actually like put it into practice and say, hey, no, we actually want to make sure that people are protected and feel safe in the workplace. And
I don't know Phil outside of like meeting him a couple times, you know, at events or whatever, but like he's always seemed like a pretty stand-up guy, like as far as like all like the different gaming like
he is.
dudes go.
I've known Phil for over a decade now. Like I first met Phil in 2009. Back when he was, you know, I don't want to say low level because I think even back then he was still a VP. I mean, he's been with Microsoft for a very long time,
forever,
and like he's never been anything but a really fantastic person. And to see him kind of take leadership reins and really kind of put, you know, the money where the mouth is, right? Like he's like never once kind of wavered from some of the core values that he's always stood behind. And like I said, all you can do is talk to people who work at these companies and go, are you happy here? Do you think that leadership is listening to you? Do you feel supported and empowered? And the people that I've talked to have all said yes. You know, it's particularly women in particular at Xbox that I know have had nothing but positive experiences. And I think that bodes well for the future of employees of Activision Blizzard, because that would think to us, and we talked about it on the show before, because one of our former co-hosts, one of the founders of What's Good Games, Alexa Ray Correa, now works for Sledgehammer Games underneath Activision's label. And we were like, how unfair is it for her to be working on this game that she's so proud of, Call of Duty Vanguard, to not be able to like go out and celebrate it on the internet because of all of this shit, you know? Like that's not her fault, you know?
Nope.
So
it sucks for all the employees that are caught in the crossfire of the whole thing. Like outside of just the people like women who weren't paid equal and stuff, like that's the kind of thing they should just, I mean, that was the main part of the lawsuit, right? Like the abuse stuff was actually the second count in the lawsuit. So like their big thing was like the gender, you know, pay disparity.
Pay discrimination, yeah.
So what I'm hoping is that maybe they will like be able to, at least with that portion, be able to look at it and say, you know, make that right, or like whatever that looks like if they can make that right for people, I think that's important. And then they can figure out the, you know, the heavier stuff on like a separate thing, because they're just separate. They're just different umbrellas, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, for all of the employees that are there, I'm actually looking forward to what it'll look like. I don't know if the sale will go through, to be honest. Like I'm a little concerned about just with the way our gaming is and meta and like all, I think it's just an NFT. I think this is going to be a lot bigger of a conversation than.
Interesting.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think in Congress and stuff, they're going to look at it like, I don't know what you guys are all up to. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Maybe I'm just jaded that like Congress is gonna look at it and make a show of looking at it and then do fucking nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably
They're gonna let me
right.
like, we're looking at it, but like, it's okay, guys. Go ahead and just slide the
Look
sales
Just
at
wait
button.
for
it.
the
It's
It's
fine,
one
it's fine.
time they're gonna like.
People
make
aren't
an
actually paying
example.
attention. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. You're probably right.
Okay, listen, to end the show, I want to end on like a lighter note. Parker wants to know, and I never ask people to name their favorite video game of all time because I think it's
So
an
much pressure.
unfair question.
It is
but
a fair question.
What was a favorite game that you played last year in 2021?
I'll be honest with you guys. Like, I didn't play any real like new games. Like, I played a lot of.
You're
like,
not alone.
replayed games.
You're not alone. Like, still,
You know?
still
Like, I
on
played,
Animal
like-
Crossing last year for me.
Yeah, I was gonna
so.
say, like, I played Animal Crossing for a solid like 2 years straight. And yeah, and then restarted The Witcher at the end of the year, and I played a game called Cat Quest. It was
I love that
great.
game so much.
So cute,
Oh, sorry, I got really excited.
adorable. I'm
It's
so
a
glad you
lovely
played it.
co-op game. Oh my
It's
god,
a great
adorable.
little game.
It is.
Played that. And you know, I played a lot of World of Warcraft because my guild was a raiding guild, and so we were raiding, 2 to 3 days a week for like 9 months. And
That's
we were-
intense. That's a lot of
It is,
raiding.
and I'm the raid leader, so it's a lot of work.
Wait,
but it's fun.
what? There's
That's
like
Yeah.
crazy.
you just like cracked open a nut that I didn't know we had. Because there's something so special about the person who leads the raids. Like that's a skill set that like not
Skill.
everybody has.
Do you raid lead?
Oh, no, I don't. Listen, you know what's funny about you asking me that is that people who are friends with me and who know me know that like I'm kind of a bossy britches and I like to be in charge and I like to take lead. Brittany's nodding like, and like, I know sometimes it can be super annoying and overbearing and you would think that I would be like, I'm the raid leader. But what's happened is like, particularly with my Destiny clan that I raid with, is that I just don't have the time to devote to learning the mechanics of the raid. And I have such imposter syndrome when I go into some of these raids that I'm like, maybe if I can just like sit in the back of the yoga class, no one's gonna notice that I'm doing everything incorrectly. As long as I don't die too much, I'll be okay. And so I've never actually like led a raid, and it kind of pains me to say because I feel like I'd be a really good raid leader. And so like I'm
You
like so
would.
excited
That's why I
that you
asked
are
you.
the raid leader. I love that for you.
Asked you because I feel like you have the right personality to do it. Like, as somebody, I've been doing it for like 10 years. Like, you
Wow.
totally have the ability to do it.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
fun.
Thank
It's
you.
fun. I love it.
So
I
how
think it's
many
fun.
raids have you led at this point, do you think?
Oh Lord. I mean, like, well, I did all of like Wrath of the Lich King, so every raid within that, and then all the raids in Cataclysm, and half the raids in Mists. But I quit in Mists for a little bit. I did a little bit of BFA, and that's when I kind of started stepping away. I didn't play the last expansion. I didn't play Legion or BFA really. I was super over the storyline and really mad about it. So like, I was trying to protest.
Mad
I
is
was
something you
angry.
love. It's the theme of this episode.
Oh,
But
yeah.
now that we're here, and I knew that we were going to end up fighting Sylvanas, and that's such a big important thing to like the core of my like who I am. So she's so important to me that I was like, this is I'm coming back. So I came back, and then we were doing 30-person raids actually. Like, they were a lot of fun.
Damn,
people.
girl.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a
WoW
lot.
raids are no joke.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but we
that's
have
amazing.
a core group, like that we've
Yeah.
had for so many years. Like, my guild has been around forever, and then we get random people just from like BlizzCon or whatever. So like we had a great time. I mean, we're definitely not like the top kind of, but we're like top 4,000. We didn't do bad.
I mean, that's
Damn.
impressive considering how
yeah.
huge the community is.
Yeah, it's huge. So it was not bad, but it's always funny when a guy comes in and you're like the girl raid leading. Like,
Oh, boy.
this guy, like, he lost his fucking mind. Like, there's so many guys that'll just like pickups that'll just come in and be like, try to just roll over you and steamroll you and talk over.
They're
and
gonna
tell you what's going
mansplain
on.
you in your own raid?
Oh, it's amazing. But it's always funny because I'll say something to shut them down, and then everyone laughs and they rage quit. And it's amazing. It's a really satisfying thing, guys.
What do you think
Highly
about
suggested.
the new? Because I read today that Horde and Alliance can start raiding together.
Yeah, that's a
That's
really
cool,
big
right?
deal. I mean, I go back and forth on it, but at the end of the day, it's best. It's not great for the storyline, but really great for the
Okay.
players. Like for the players, it's amazing, and like to have more, especially if you're on a slow server, it's kind of amazing. So yeah,
Cool.
Do you
that was
think
my game. I'm sorry I can't tell you more. Like that was the game I played the most.
No.
I'm
So
sorry.
it's
you-
awesome. I played a lot of WoW back in my day. I started around, I think it was Lich King, and then I ended up stopping. My aunt played a lot of WoW, and so my aunt got me into it. She got like my cousins into it, so we had like this family little like guild going
That's
on.
fun.
It was so much fun, and I had such a great time with it. I just kind of ended up fizzling out on it, but
Yeah,
I think
always.
of WoW fondly. It was a really fun moment in my life when I really got close with like my family because like we all bonded over it. So it's
Well,
fun
when it's in the
hearing you talk
metaverse, you
about
should
it.
come join our guild because I'm sure it's fun.
Absolutely, I would love to. I'll be there with my Bored Ape. It'll be great.
I love it. I love it. Like one last thing. Do you think they're ever going to bring WoW to console? This is why I haven't played WoW, because it hasn't been on console. Will WoW finally come to console now that
I mean, I
Xbox
think they
owns
need to
them?
upgrade it like a lot, like for it to be on console. Like I think if now that Microsoft is in charge of it, I would imagine that they would really be trying to move it onto the Xbox. Like if they're not, then I don't understand because like especially with Metaverse coming, like you've got to do that. You've got to do that. You've got to put it on the Xbox. We'll see what happens. But
Why
I
not,
think
right?
it
Like,
will.
I can't believe, like, after all this time, like, there hasn't been a console port, especially looking at how well MMOs have done on console. It's
Final
like,
Fantasy 14, right? Yeah.
right?
killing
Well,
it.
I mean, in Destiny 2 and knowing how many people
Destiny.
have Game Pass subscriptions, it's like, and not just PC, right? Like, the Xbox subscriptions is like, yo, 25 million people.
People are so funny about their computers in this community. It'll be interesting to see. Like I personally can't even like it's hard for me to play with a controller with a gamepad because it hurts my hands so much. Like I wish there were smaller ones. Like do they just sell kid size or like women's hand size? Like
They
why is that not a
do.
thing?
There's
Why
a
can't they
couple-
make money on that?
There is a couple companies that
Is there?
sell third-party ones. Yeah.
I don't know why Microsoft themselves doesn't do it and be like, here is the smaller size. And I would buy it so fast in like 10 colors. I'd be so all over it. But yeah, they're always a little big for me. So I always prefer computer, but I would imagine that putting it on console would get like a whole new base of players that would be
Oh,
so
yeah.
excited to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, can't you use your mouse and keyboard on Xbox now?
I don't know if like it's
Not
because
every game supports it, but like I thought that was
it
a
does.
thing.
My friends did it for Overwatch, and it was not like great, but it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. So it's not like optimal playing, but you
Yeah.
can do it.
Yeah. I guess
Yeah.
people out there would be like, but if you have a gaming PC, why would you do
Why
that?
would you do it? Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Why would you?
Fair.
Just
And the answer
play
is
on
to
your
sit on your
PC.
couch. The answer is to
Yeah.
sit on your couch and pass the controller off to other people while you're drinking or something. Like that's the fun part of it, right? So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah. Mhm.
Well, Michelle, this has been really fun to have you on the
So
show. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with us about what you've been playing and to give us your fantastic insights onto some of the hot news that's been happening. If people want to keep up with what you're working on and follow you and learn more about your moon planner, where can they do that?
Just on social media, Michelle Morrow, Michelle's with 1L, on Twitter and Instagram. And my moon time planner does have a TikTok, girl. So
What?
That's-
You never told me you
yeah.
have a TikTok.
I don't know what I'm doing.
No one does. It's fine. Just have fun with it.
TikTok is like the wild west of digital content creation. You can do whatever you want on TikTok.
Yeah, I've noticed.
Word.
Amazing. Well, thank you everybody for joining us on this episode. Britt and I will be back next week with more new games to talk about. We hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.